I am Cliff. I want you to check this out. This is going to be on the test later. It'll come back. Just to get some bio stuff out of the way, I was born in Nashville. I still live in the suburb of Nashville. Everybody in Nashville seems to be able to play guitar or something, and I have some musical ability as well. I went to school as a composition major, so I thankfully became a computer nerd while I was in school to get my music composition degree. But I'm still heavily involved in music. As a matter of fact, at the end of my talk, I'm going to play a world premiere of a ham song. Not a lot of ham songs being written these days. But my good friend Doug Miller, W4DML, who's sitting right over there, is the star of this music video. Doug is impervious to embarrassment, but it's nice to have someone like that on your crew. As far as my ham journey goes, I've got an older brother who had a ham ticket when he was young, and when I was 26 in 1986, he encouraged me, challenged me really, to get my ticket. And when you're a younger brother, you kind of want to go ahead and rise to the challenge of an older brother. So honestly, without my brother, I wouldn't have had this 30-something, ham career that I've had, and I wouldn't be standing here. So I'd like to just take a minute to explain why I shot him. Yeah, I shot him. So it was 1968. I was 8 years old. He was 14. We were in the woods a couple of miles from home. I had no idea how to get home, and he knew that. So he looked at me with this weird smile, and you've seen it because if you ever watch How the Grinch Stole Christmas, there's a moment when the Grinch is standing on Mount Crumpet, and he's looking down at Whoville, and he figures out how to steal Christmas, and he gets this sick little smile on his face. That was my brother. Now, he turned to me, and by the way, I'm not making any of this up. This actually happened. But he turned to me and he said, Cliff, I'm going to leave you here to die in the woods. And, I said, game on. If you do, I will shoot you. And he thought that was funny. So, I thought he was going to reassure me. He said, don't worry, it's okay. You're going to be fine. Until dusk when the coyotes come out. Great. So I again said, if you leave me, I will shoot you. And with that, he kind of turned around and just took off like he was shot out of a cannon. And true to my word, I raised my BB gun. But this wasn't like the BB gun of your childhood dreams. This isn't the Crossman 760 multi-pump, high-velocity, BB/pellet gun. This is a gun for an 8-year-old. It's your basic Daisy, you'll shoot your eye out, kid, gun, And I remember actually having to aim over his head to account for gravity, pulling the BB back to get him. He was too far to shoot in the back directly, and a headshot was out of the question. So I steadied myself, I aimed, and I squeezed off a round. And he was wearing a beige jacket, running hard. The wind was kind of billowing, and the jacket was away from his back. I saw the BB hit him in the back, and I was not prepared for what happened next. My a-hole brother let out a blood-curdling scream, flopped face first into the grass, and he was lying there motionless. I'm not making any of this up. All of this actually happened. So I think, oh crap, I've just killed the only person who could lead me out of the coyote-infested woods. And then I thought, if I live, if I make it through coyote night or whatever's happening next, there will be a reckoning because you cannot kill your brother without your parents asking some questions. Now, in hindsight, I think they might have been grateful for what I had done. But at the time, I thought I was going to be in trouble. And if you think about it, I had already told him twice I was going to shoot him. So there was some premeditation. And, second-degree murder is defined as intent to harm but not necessarily kill. So, I was looking at second-degree murder probably. Anyway, so I run up to him, and as you probably already can guess, as soon as I got to his lifeless body, he jumps up and laughs hysterically in my face. And I wanted to shoot him again. I really did. But I'd already had that little epiphany that he was the only person that could save me. So I didn't. But 18 years later, he suggested I get my ham license. If you're wondering, he's alive and well. He lives 15 miles north of Nashville in the city that we grew up in, Hendersonville, Tennessee. He's still a turd of a big brother, but he's my turd. He's my big brother. I love him. And if he ever gets a chance to watch this video, I do want to apologize for throwing the scissors later. But he knows he had it coming. Yeah. I was interested in QRP right from the get-go. As soon as I got my first radio, it was just a little QRP rig, and my first contact was Cuba. And at the time, I just thought that was amazing. Of course, now we all know that you can work Cuba pretty easily, but at the time, it just seemed like magic, and it still kind of seems like magic, even when you know how it works. It's still just, you just get this feeling of joy when you do work QRP. So I've always loved it. I'm very active in my local Aries group, Williamson County Aries, WCARES for short. And I want to talk about that just for a minute later because we did something amazing in 2018 that I want to share with you. And finally, I guess it's probably been about 8 years ago, I created a YouTube channel called QRP School. And we'll talk about that briefly. All right, here's the agenda for today. We'll talk about some philosophical stuff. I want to just briefly talk about my YouTube channel, some misconceptions about QRP, and then demystifying QRP is where I want to tell you how I explain QRP so that if some of you can think of a more concise, easy to understand way to say it, that you can grab me or shoot me an email and tell me, because it's really important to me to try to promote and encourage people to do QRP who may not think it works. And of course it does. Proof that QRP works, and then this world premiere of Doug Miller's performance in QRO has got me in a funk. And I don't think I'm going to have time to talk about YouTube stuff, but we'll see. All right, by the way, this is what happens when you tell AI to put Rodin's The Thinker on a pedestal in front of a bunch of ham radio gear. That's what they think it looks like, and it's really not bad, but it's AI for sure. All right, so I've got a coworker. I have a little computer software company, and I've got a coworker who knows about ham radio, but not really QRP. So he was asking me, what do you guys do that normal hams don't do? And normal hams kind of jumped out at me because it's kind of an oxymoron, isn't it? I mean, you can look at this, you can kind of look at, the room, and we're not really normal. And those of you who are feeling self-righteously indignant right now, let me just gingerly point out that you could be anywhere in America. You could be eating key lime pie in Key West right now, but you are in a darkened ballroom in Ohio at a Holiday Inn. You paid money to hear dudes talk about QRP. Now, the rest of us have already gone through the 5 stages of grief. We've come to the acceptance part. We know we're QRP weirdos, and we're cool with that. So the faster you work through it, the better. But anyway, we got to the point where my coworker's like, well, if the guys that aren't doing QRP can just turn their power down and do what you guys do, how is QRP even a thing? And we talked more about it. And finally, he came to the understanding that we turn the power down so that it's more of a challenge. And when we make contacts, we have more of a feeling of accomplishment. And of course, that's exactly right. And then he said, is that why you remarried your ex-wife? And I said, it's 3 o'clock. I've got to go to that thing. I'll see you later. But I did remember my ex-wife, and it's been 20 years ago. It all has worked out. And I can't say that that's why I remarried her, so that I'd be happier when it worked out. But I can tell you that that's the hard way to do it. Because if you, God forbid, you find yourself single, but if you do, there's a low bar for dating. All you have to have is a job, and you can find another woman to make miserable. You don't have to go this route. So, yeah, we intentionally reduce our power output to increase the difficulty of making contacts, leading to a greater sense of joy and satisfaction. upon our success. Those are my words. I think that's true. All right. Some people think that QRP must not be very fun because it doesn't always work. But that's exactly why it is fun. It's fun because it doesn't always work. When things always work, it's no fun. Imagine that we're inventing the game of bowling. Bowling doesn't exist. So we set out to invent bowling. And so we build like a stand. We put the ball in the stand, and then you push the ball off the stand, and it goes down a ramp. There are no bowling lanes yet. It goes into a half pipe. So the ball can't go left or right. It comes out of the half pipe and it hits the pin, because we don't have 10 pins yet. It's just a pin. So you just go, boop, the ball falls off, down the ramp, half pipe, strike. Boop, half pipe, strike. Boop is my side tone pitch, by the way. I'm pretty sure about that. But if you can just like turn around and hit the ball, boop, and it goes down and you get a strike, there's no fun. There's no fun. Nobody's going to bowl for more than a minute or two. But I promise you, after about a couple of minutes, people are going to try to make it not work. People are going to try to screw it up. There's a challenge in that, right? You're going to try to spin the ball or make it come out of the half pipe or do something, because there's no challenge in that kind of bowling. So we love a good challenge, and that's why we do QRP, and that's why it's fun. So QRP is fun because it doesn't work. Always. So turns out that the people that we admire the most are the people that do hard things. If you think about that. People that do hard things, we admire those people. Even people that don't reach success, people who try hard things. If they're not successful, we still admire them. An old guy who decides to run a marathon. You know, scientists, musicians, athletes, of course. But doing hard things is kind of baked into our DNA, is that's what we're here to do. John F. Kennedy. We're choosing to go to the moon not because it's easy, but because it's hard. If Michael Jordan had a giant hoop, would watching him be as fun? Michael Jordan didn't need the big hoop. If you play golf and the hole was that big, now I would like that. You too? Yeah. I would like that. But just for a while. I mean, right? I mean, like, you got to the point where you could just chip the ball onto the green and you get it in the hole. That's going to be fine for a little bit. But eventually we're going to want to shrink that hole. Some people quit when things get hard, but some people quit when things get easy. And I've had a number of people over the years who have told me that they were really bored with QRO. There was no challenge. I mean, let's face it, if propagation's pretty good between two stations, and then you flip on your 1500 watt amp, you're probably going to be able to talk to them, right? There's no challenge in that. If you can hear them, you can work them. I mean, that's kind of the way it is with CW in QRP most of the time. But certainly if you can hear somebody well and you flip on your 1500 watts, there's no challenge in that. So that gets kind of boring after a while. So people who say life's too short for QRP, they want the big hoop and the big golf hole. They're just not wired for that challenge. Let's talk about that. Life's too short for QRP. How many people have heard that? How many people have had somebody say that to you or overheard somebody saying that? That makes me crazy. That just makes me nuts. I can't tell you how many times people have said that. And it's usually somebody with a southern accent. And I'm from Tennessee. There's a lot of rednecks, you know, everywhere. My wife's from New Jersey. I've seen New Jersey rednecks. Nobody's immune from that. But, you know, people think they're being funny. Oh, life's too short for QRP. Great. Well, life is too short for a few things. If you are holding a grudge or resentment, that's going to eat at you. You shouldn't be doing that. You got to get rid of that. If you're working at a job you hate, that's no good. No good to spend your life doing something that you hate. And if you're in a toxic relationship, you got to get out of that. But life being too short for QRP, it came back. Here it is. What are they? Mayflies? Do they have like 2 days to cram an entire life's worth of stuff in? They don't have time for something that's fun, something that's meaningful, something that's challenging? I mean, that is just ridiculous. Now, I think we have to chill to know that some people who say life's too short for QRP, life's too short for a lot of stuff. Imagine if you live in a world where everybody had a bass boat and they're tricked out with big engines and cup holders and maybe a Presto Fry Daddy. I don't know what's on a bass boat. I've never been on a bass boat. I'm pulling stuff out in there. But somebody comes up to you and says, hey, y'all, what kind of bass boat you got? And you kind of start panicking and you're like, well, honestly, I'm kind of into more of like a contemplative, meditative boating experience where I like to be connected with nature and just kind of glide across the water. I've got a canoe. And of course, the guy's like, canoe? Life's too short for a canoe, right? Life's too short for anything that is slow, I guess. But seriously, what are they doing that they can't stop to do QRP? I mean, imagine like just breakfast. Got no time for those Pop-Tarts to be put in the toaster, man. I need my tarts stat right now. I've got so much to do. Life's too short for making s'mores. Life's too short for a fork. I don't really know. But is life too short to ask if the frequency is in use? I mean, where do you draw the line? I don't know. I don't know. So let's fix it. Let's fix this. Our forefathers did not fix this for us, but I think I've got a fix. If you watch some of my videos, you might have seen this before. Let's say that this is a family tree and we're at the top here, and our children and grandchildren, our future hams are down here below. When somebody says to you, life's too short for QRP, what you need to say, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were a man with a short one. But you've got to say it with compassion and understand and care. Like you have to be like, I'm so sorry. I did not realize you're a man with a short one. And you can say short like that. Because that, you know, like short, a stack of pancakes, you know, but you can just say, I'm sorry, I didn't realize, and you just like look around maybe to see, make sure nobody's listening over here out of concern. Sorry, I didn't realize you're a man with a short one. And they're going to be indignant, right? They're going to be angry. What are you talking about? And you're like, well, you're terminally ill, right? I mean, you've got something happening that's going to shorten your lifespan. You just told me that. And they're like, no, I didn't tell you that. I told you life's too short for QRP. And you're like, well, what are you getting so upset with me? You just told me you were dying, and you're acting like this is some kind of HIPAA violation now that I've said something. So if we all stick together, if we stick together and somebody says life's too short for QRP, and you come back with this, pretty soon people will like not say that anymore. Because who wants to go through that every time? So I would just ask you to indulge me. Let me go back. Just one time, just for my heart, I'm going to say life's too short for QRP. I would like for everybody just to read that out loud, just for me, just not for you, for me. Life's too short for QRP. I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were a man with a short one. Thank you so much. That means so much to me. I wish I had like videotaped that. That would be hilarious. I have a little Amazon smart speaker, Alexa, and if you have one of those things, you know that you have to be super careful when you say anything like that. You can say elixir, and she perks up. What? So you got to be really careful. But I asked Alexa about life's too short for QRP. This is what she said.
Alexa, what do people mean when they say life is too short for QRP?
If a guy says life is too short for QRP, he's probably got a really short one, because otherwise that makes no sense. It is possible that guy is a mayfly.
Yeah, her words, not mine. Her words. Okay, now, this is the last thing I want to say about life being too short. I saw this photo and I was like, so deflated because of all the disdain that I have felt for people who say life's too short for QRP. These guys are smoke jumpers. These are badass human beings. These guys literally jump out of airplanes and go fight fires barehanded, axes, rakes, whatever. I mean, if there were ever badass people, these guys are those people. And imagine if like that guy comes home from work and he just wants to make a few contacts and drink a beer and go to bed because tomorrow he's got to jump out of a plane and fight fire again. Am I going to like get on his case for not turning the power down? And he's like, I've just been literally jumping out of a freaking plane to go fight fire. I don't want a hard experience with my ham radio. I just want to make a few contacts, man. Don't make me do that. So I think we have to have some grace for some people whose lives are hard and they just don't want that to extend to their ham hobby, okay? So, we just have to be cool. But your dumb redneck friends do not get a pass on this, okay? No. If your dumb redneck friends say, life's too short for QRP, you got to hit them. You got to hit them hard. I'm sorry, I didn't realize you're a man with a short one. All right, briefly about my QRP School YouTube video. Who am I to create that? That's a great question. So about 8 years ago, I was loving some QRP videos. Guys, I don't even want to mention names and stuff, but I can't help but say, WG0AT, Steve, who was making those QRP soda activations with his goats. I mean, that guy's a rock star, and I was loving that, but there didn't seem to be any particular channel where they were promoting QRP or trying to encourage people to do QRP. So I just said, okay, I'll do it. And I'm not as technically minded as the people that have been on the stage so far, but I do have enthusiasm, and I think enthusiasm counts for a lot in this. So I set out to demonstrate that it works, explain why it works, to show examples of working DX with weak signals, and to try to get people to not be surprised that it works, because it does work all the time. And then to encourage people to try it, and then finally to decrease the number of fine folks who say life is too short for QRP. And if I had to create buckets that my videos would fit into, these are the buckets. I'm not gonna read these, but I made like 50-something videos back then I took a break, and I'm making videos again. But they would all fall into one of those categories. All right. Misconceptions about QRP. I made a video probably a month ago where it's like debunking QRP myths, and I listed out a bunch of them. I could debunk all of them except the one in yellow. You will turn into some kind of QRP weirdo, because that is true. And I've got a couple of social experiments I want to do. This requires you to indulge me by just taking a moment to look at the person on your right and left. It's going to get awkward, but just look at who you're sitting next to. There's no DSM-5 manual diagnosis of QRP weirdoism, but we're going to do a little self-diagnosis. So just look at whoever's sitting around you. And now I want everybody to close your eyes and keep them closed. Close your eyes, keep them closed. If you think it's possible, just possible, that you're sitting next to a QRP weirdo, just raise your hand. Okay, all right. Now, put your hands down. I saw a lot of hands just then. A lot of hands, guys. So that's cool. Now, one other thing I want to try. I made a little video here. It takes about a minute. I went out to the internet and I grabbed a bunch of screenshots of QRP rigs, and I'm going to show them to you, and I want you to just count the ones that you either have owned or that you've spent significant time with. And then after it's done, I'm going to ask you a question. Here we go. That was my first radio, by the way. Century 21. Granddaddy of them all. Okay, I had 17 of those. which is why I'm standing here, I guess. I mean, king of the weirdos. But that's not the question I wanted to ask you. That was a ruse. What I really want to ask is, when I've done this in the past and I've showed this and tested it on other people, people who are QRP weirdos, and I say that with love because, you know, if you're a QRP weirdo, it's like you're the professor on Gilligan's Island, okay? There's nothing wrong with being the professor on Gilligan's Island. But the real question is, how many of you guys saw a cat in that video? Because QRP weirdos do not see a cat in that video. Be honest, did anybody see a cat in that video? Anybody? Tuna fish can, not a cat though, but that's good. All right, I'm going to play this thing again, and I just want you to, now that you know there's a cat, look for the cat. You see the cat? You see it? I knew it. I knew you would see that cat. If I said something, you would see it. Yeah, yeah. All right, so let's talk about demystifying QRP. I want to tell you how I explain QRP, and in all sincerity, if you can think of a better way to say this and explain it to somebody who knows absolutely nothing about QRP, or maybe is even a QRP denier or whatever, you can help me by telling me about this, because this is really critical to what I'm trying to do. All right, there is not a linear relationship between your transmitted power and the perceived loudness on the receiving station's end. In other words, if I'm transmitting 5 watts and you're sitting next to me transmitting 100 watts, the person on the other end that can hear us both is not saying, oh man, that station sounds like it's 20 times louder than this other one. Or that 5-watt signal sounds like it's 5% as loud as the other. It doesn't work that way, it just doesn't. So you can't go by that. If you double your power, that's a 3 dB increase. But on a properly calibrated radio, S units are 6 dB apart. So doubling your power only gets you an extra half an S unit on the receiving side. And people cannot hear the difference in a half an S unit. If I played you the audio of some signal that was S7, and then I played you the audio of something that was S7.5, you would not be able to tell the difference. As a matter of fact, there's an Ameritron ad for an amplifier where they're trying to sell you the 600-watt amplifier, and they say, you know, it's only like a half an S unit down from 1,500 watts, and nobody can hear the difference. So everybody will think that you're transmitting 1,500 watts. So I mean, that's weird logic from them, but you know, if you can't hear the difference, then what's the point of buying the 1,500-watt amp that they sell many of? I don't know about that. So doubling your power does very little good. Quadrupling your power gets you 1 extra S unit. And, you know, everybody knows that if your signal is way down in the noise floor, having an extra S unit, it might make a difference, right? So it's not like it's silly to not transmit more power. If you can't make the contact, transmit more power. But it's not as big an elevated, signal as you think it is when you start adding an amplifier. So the beautiful thing is this works the other way around too. If you cut your power in half, you're only going to lose 1/2 of an S unit on the other side. So going from 100 watts to 50 watts, half an S unit. Take it down to 25 watts. Now you're down 1 S unit. You've cut your power by a factor of 4, and you're only 1 S unit quieter. We'll do that again. Now you're 2 S units, and you've gone from 100 watts to 6.25 watts. Let's call it 5 watts because there's no difference in 5 watts and 6.5 watts if you're following the logic here. You won't be able to hear the difference in that. So you're only going to lose 2 S units by going down from 100 to 5. Now, if you go to your radio and you start listening to signals, you're going to see a lot of signals out there that are more than 2 S units above your noise floor. And if those people are transmitting 100 watts, then you can work those people QRP. And there's a lot of it out there. So that's why QRP works. That's how I explain it in my videos and talking to people. If you can think of a better way to say that, that's shorter or makes more sense, I would love to hear it. I'm getting a spam call on in my hearing aids right now. All right, proof that QRP works. I like this little cartoon where a miracle occurs here in the second step of this equation. I'm preaching to the choir today. I know that. You guys all know QRP works. You've all had experience doing DX. I don't have to prove to you guys that it works. If you ever go to my YouTube channel, there are a bunch of videos out there. Here are some of them I've listed here where I'm working DX with QRP so that people who aren't QRP people can see, oh yeah, it is possible to be out riding your bicycle and stop and put up a wire antenna and work Japan. But really what I want to show you is this. So this ARES group that I belong to, Williamson County ARES in Tennessee, WCARES, in 2018, we set out to try to get a top 10 score in the ARRO field day. And we analyzed our QSOs from the previous year in 2017 and realized that it was within reach. If we did everything right, if we got every bonus point, if we had some training classes for some of our operators that weren't very experienced, we could do that. We used 5 KX3s, all with PX3 pan adapters, everything running on battery power. We've got a big group, and so there were like 31 sideband operators that signed up to work a shift over this 24-hour period. 12 digital people, 6 of us did CW. We did everything possible, inviting dignitaries, putting out pamphlets, press release, copying the radiogram, everything you could possibly do. This is the flyer I put up around the building. The goal was to finish with a top 10 national score, but have fun while doing that. Here we were analyzing this is from a presentation that we did back in 2018 before field day where we're trying to get everybody jazzed up about what we're trying to do. More analysis of 2017. This was the antenna diagram. We are blessed in that county with having an emergency operations center where the public safety director of the county is a ham. And so when they built that amazing building, which can withstand an F5 tornado, it's got an auxiliary communications room just right off the emergency operations center with tons of radios. We've got a Mosley 3-element beam, a hex beam, 4 alpha delta wire antennas. We added another one that day. But we've got all this stuff just right there in the building where our little headquarters is. So we were really lucky to have that. And this is from the December QST magazine in 2018. You can see in the top right-hand corner, there are almost 3,000 stations. And our station, N4FR, we're in Franklin, Tennessee, N4FR, I guess for Franklin. We took number 9 in the entire event. We did make the top 10, and that was QRP with KX3s. So you can do that. All right, and that leads me to, we're doing pretty good on time, aren't we, David? All right, great. A world premiere of a ham song starring my good friend Doug Miller, who I'm trying to make a star. He has told me that he is available for future ham video, music video work, if anybody has any of that. Which I seriously doubt anybody does or will. But I want to play this, and then I can take some questions, or we can talk about some YouTube stuff.
Another day of busting pile-ups left and right. My towers touch the cloud, my amplifiers glowing bright. Although my signal's strong, something just feels wrong. Put my finger on it, but I'm not having fun. Shooting fish in a barrel, my radio is my gun. The count is gone. I might as well be using a cell phone. You are always got me in a box. I'm thinking of selling all this stuff. Now it's left, I'm so different. I've been my power obsessed, and now it's dragging me down. To the back, to my friends, I couldn't get enough. These days, all we talk about is our medical stuff. Got a song in my head with a sad, sad tone. It's by B.B. King, and it says, "Real is gone." All those watts ain't worth it. They took the thrill away. Time to pack it in. I'm gonna list it all on eBay. Now when you're left without, time for you to cry around. I'm so depressed. I've been high power obsessed, and now it's dragging me down. Think you are evil, you're my use. Bring back the fun of the chase, bring back the thrill. I'll get a simple rig and a wire knot. But first I need to climb out all this blinding lights. You are ropers, got me in. Thinking of selling all this truth.
I'm just curious, did it hurt when you fell from heaven?
That's kind of a love letter to the KH-1, I think, in hindsight. Yeah, so that was fun. I've got stuff we can talk about making YouTube videos. Dave, how much time do we have left? I can wrap it up anytime you. Okay. You wanted a little break before lunch though, didn't you? Or not? Okay. All right. I do want to encourage people to make more YouTube videos. I know there are people in this room that are doing that already, and it can't hurt to have more people showing successful POTA activations and so on. POTA's been so amazing for us. You know, people are, you know, taking a G90 out in the field and they can only transmit 20 watts. So, you know, doing sideband with a QRP radio is amazing. But if you want to do YouTube videos, you don't have to have a lot of expensive gear. I just made a video 5 days ago for my local ham group about shooting YouTube videos on a shoestring budget. And I'm gonna take that and kind of rebrand it and put it on my YouTube channel as well. But you know, one important thing here is you don't have to be an expert to make videos. Your target audience is not the experts. Your target audience is people who are just right behind you on this journey, who are there to learn something from you or be entertained by you or whatever. You don't need to worry about the experts. Of course, people have opinions, hams have opinions. So when you put up a video and you know, if it says anything controversial, or you know, you need to buckle up, because there are people who are going to be trolls in the comment section and say things that you're going to have to deal with. But it's also important to know that you don't have to go public with your videos. You can keep them private and just share them with your friends, share them with your local ham group. But you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be attractive. I mean, look at this, right? You don't have to have ultra expensive gear. Matter of fact, your cell phone is capable of shooting 1080p video, right? You don't have to shoot 4K video. It takes 4 times the storage and bandwidth. 1080p scales to 4K just fine. You can just start with your cell phone. And you also don't have to commit to going long term. when you commit to a long-term QRP thing, you start to feel some weight on your shoulders. It's like every weekend, it's like, oh, I should be making a video, but I don't want to, but I should. So you got this angel and devil thing happening on your shoulders. But you don't have to do that. You don't have to decide to go down that rabbit hole. You can just make videos, and if they come out good, great. Put them on YouTube, mark them as unlisted. When your videos on YouTube is unlisted, nobody can see it. They go to your channel, they won't see it. They can't see it unless you give them the URL. So you could have a whole YouTube career by just uploading videos to your family and your local ham friends. You can make a video for your local ham club, and don't make it public if you don't want to, but give it to the person that sends out your ham club emails or your website, so the people that come to those can see that. You don't have to open yourself up to being some kind of celebrity or something. Yeah, what I just said. Experiment without ever going public. Now, there are a lot of things to consider when you're shooting video, and I'm going to stop with this slide. There's no reason to keep going beyond this, but obviously, if you're making a video, you got to know your subject matter, and you got to do some research. I watched a ham video one time by this guy, and I don't know if he's making videos anymore. I think it's safe to talk about it, but I won't say who it is. But he had a Yaesu radio that I just happened to have, and he was gonna make a video about that radio. Okay, great. So I start watching, and he's doing an unboxing. He takes it out of the box and hooks it up. And about maybe 10 minutes into the video, he comes across this knob, and he says, I don't really know what this knob does. I haven't read the manual yet, And I'm thinking, Jesus, just read the manual. If there's a knob there that you don't understand, just take 2 minutes and read that part of the manual, so that when you're on YouTube, you're not having to say, I don't really know what this knob does. I mean, how hard is that? Come on. So of course, when I saw that, I was like, well, what is the point of watching this video? So I just bailed on that. So obviously, if you're making a video, you should know your subject matter and the content. Doesn't mean that you need to not make any mistakes. I misspeak all the time. All the time. If you're watching any of my videos, you'll see me like drop in annotations when I'm editing. Like I made one on Vapoda about a month ago when I was down in Orlando for a business trip. And there was a hawk that flew up right in front of me into a tree as I was driving toward this pavilion. And so I stop and I shoot this video through the windshield of this hawk. And I say, this is the kind of stuff that you might see when you go to a national park. Well, it was a state park. And so later when I was editing, I just dropped in state park on the screen. So, if you misspeak, you can fix that later. But definitely try to know your subject material. Shot list. So when you make a video, unless it's just like something you're making at your desktop or something, if you're going out for an activation, think about telling a story. Imagine like you're doing FaceTime for a friend who's sick and shut in, and you're trying to bring them along. A video is actually a series of clips, right? You can certainly turn on your camera and make a long video and never edit it. And Thomas Witherspoon can get away with that. I can't. Matter of fact, when I first saw a Thomas Witherspoon video that was like over an hour, from my background as a computer, I'm a CEO of a little software company. There's only 11 of us. Don't be too impressed. But I've made a ton of videos for the last 15 years, marketing videos, tutorial videos. If somebody watches a video for more than a couple of minutes, I'm just thrilled, because we've got the attention span of chimps on crack or something. We don't want to watch something that takes a long time to watch. And so I thought, Thomas Witherspoon must be crazy, because he's making like an hour-long ham video. But I'll be damned if I haven't seen dozens and dozens of them. I love them. I love them. It works for him. You can turn them on and you can start watching, and then he talks and shows you how he sets up, and then he starts making contacts. And at that point, if you want to slide around to the end where he gives a summary, it's just like you're there with him. He tells a story. He's taking you along that journey. So as you're making your videos, think about that and have a clip that shows where you're going. Drop in a map from Google Maps or something. Show them what kind of gear you've got. Show them setting up that gear. Talk to the camera while you're doing your activation. Make it engaging. And I just made a video a couple weeks ago about making more engaging ham videos, and all this kind of stuff is on that. Basically, I took a video that I made, and I kind of made a director's commentary version of it to explain what I did and the mistakes I made, and so to help people kind of get their head around becoming storytellers in these videos. Audio capture, the only thing you need to know about that is if you're outside, you're going to have wind noise. And so wind noise is kind of a problem because people will tolerate bad video, but people will not tolerate bad audio. So for $30, you can get a USB microphone, like a lavalier microphone that you can plug into your phone if you're going to shoot this low, with a low budget, and a little dead cat windscreen that fits on that will eliminate the wind noise. But you definitely want to get close to the microphone. Even if you're like 5 or 6 feet from the microphone, you can hear the room. You can hear the room tone, the reverb. And in ham speak, that's like signal to noise. The reverb is the noise. This is the signal. And the more that microphone is closer to the signal, the less of this room you're going to hear, less noise. So it's really good to have a microphone close to you when you're making videos. Video capture, it's just, get a tripod. Make sure that you got some kind of stable tripod. And if you get a traditional 3-legged tripod, you can put it here next to you on your shoulder and have it kind of looking over your shoulder. If you get another tripod that's just got a single center column with a small base, you can put it between like you and the picnic table and just have it right here at chest level where it's kind of like a single, point of view kind of thing, and you're just working around it. But anyway, lighting, obviously if you're shooting outside, you've already got your light. You might want to be aware of, overhead sun making these raccoon eyes, shadows in your eye sockets, turn around. But nobody drags supplemental lighting out to shoot ham videos. I mean, you do that if you're shooting a bridal, but you don't need to worry about that. If you're shooting inside, if you're getting started, you can just use window light, but that does limit the times a day you can shoot. But for like $70 on Amazon, you can get 2 lights, 2 soft boxes, and 2 light stands and a case for $70. Now, it's not going to be professional quality, but it's going to be fine. The background. If you're shooting at home, you may have a cluttered background, or you may be in a situation like I am where my desk behind me is all my music gear. And my music gear is irrelevant to my ham hobby or to my job doing Zoom videos and stuff. So I have a green screen, and you can get a portable green screen that you can just bring and set up on a little tripod. And now you can put any image you want in the background on that green screen. Even take a picture of your ham shack when it's not cluttered, so that forever it'll be uncluttered in the background through green screen. Supplemental content, annotations, graphics, the YouTube thumbnail. So don't forget that when you're shooting something, you have the ability to go in later and drop in more information and correct your mistakes. So you can provide more context, more information, or if you're having a senior moment like I have more and more, where you say, I don't know if that antenna was 79.95, or I'll look it up for you. Later, when you're editing this video, you can just look that up and drop it in on the screen. So don't forget that you have the ability after the fact to actually do some things. Speaking of that, so even if you've only got one camera, I shoot with 2 cameras, one looking at the radio and one looking at me, so that I can just like look over at that camera and say, wow, wasn't that a cool contact or something. If you've only got one camera, nobody knows that after the thing was over, that you didn't set up that same camera over here to say, wow, that was Spain, wasn't that cool? They don't know you don't have a second camera. In editing, you can do anything. As a matter of fact, if you forget to sum up your experience at home that night, you can make a video that says, hey, I went and did a POTA today. It was fantastic. I'm going to run that for you now. And then when you run that video, you splice that in, and at the end, you can say, wasn't that cool? We worked 17 stations. So you have total control over making these videos as far as putting clips and splitting clips and inserting things. Last thing I'm saying is editing. So it's a pain in the butt to edit video. When I make a video, I might literally spend 4 or 5 hours editing that video. By the time I sync up the audio and pictures, drop in annotations, trim stuff, I might seriously like 4 or 5 hours to edit something that only took me 30 minutes to shoot. So it's a real commitment and a pain. But there's a free software package called DaVinci Resolve. They make a professional version that rivals Adobe Premiere, Final Cut. But there's a free version of DaVinci Resolve, which is fantastic. I went through a 20-minute tutorial recently and just watched this guy take somebody from nothing to a finished video in only 20 minutes. Now, it wasn't a fancy video, but it did have some clips and some music and stuff like that. But DaVinci Resolve is free, and you should look into that. It works on Mac and PC. Fantastic program. So with that, I'm going to quit talking. I don't know if there's time for a question or two, if any. If you have a question, I'd be surprised. But so yeah, because I'm just basically a Yahoo, an enthusiastic Yahoo, but I'll answer any questions you might have.
Like I said during my talk, one of the reasons Al and I are doing what we're doing is we want to look around the room and guess the age.
Yeah.
What we'd like to do is find something that brings younger people into it. And our experience is that price matters. But now QRP seems like a natural avenue for augmenting our rank. But we also see the QRO 100-watt rigs coming down in price.
Yeah.
What would you do to attract a younger audience?
That's a good question. Well, you know, we've done some stuff with scouting groups where the kids are getting their first, you know, contacts through a jamboree, youth on the air thing, JOTA, jamboree on the air. It is, like you said in your talk, Jack, it is kind of perceived that I don't have the cash for this kind of thing. And you can certainly do it on the cheap if you want to. You have to really need a mentor, you know. If you're young, you need somebody to talk to say, what should I get? And I would suggest that you let somebody borrow a radio. I think probably everybody in this room probably has multiple radios. Letting somebody, yeah, that's an understatement, isn't it?
Our club actually has a station that somebody can borrow
Nice.
for up to 6 months. But I find it interesting that a lot of STEM programs are run around the country, but they did one in Great Britain, and they had set up a CW and a single sideband station, and it was the CW station that attracted all the attention.
Yeah.
And the reason was, they said, we have no use for single sideband because we can do that with our cell phone. But if we use CW, our parents don't know what we're saying.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Clandestine communications. I like that. Cameras. Okay. I will tell you something embarrassing. So before I
Should
took
I
a
ask
break-
again?
No, I got it. So I'll
Do
repeat
you have a
the-
recommendation for
Is
cameras?
there a recommendation for cameras? I shot videos for about 4 years or so, and then I took a break, and now I'm resuming, and I'm going to retire a year from now, and I'll have more time even then. The last videos I made 4 years ago, when I took a break, I was dragging a $5,000 camera and a $2,000 lens to shoot stuff, and it looked great. I had shallow depth of field, but it was so stupid to do that. You don't need to spend money. Now I've been experimenting. I was using GoPros for a while, and they weren't reliable. I threw 4 of them in the trash. I read something great about this DJI Osmo 4 action camera. I bought one. It was super reliable. The battery lasts longer. And so I went and bought a second one. And so even though I do have, you know, high-end camera gear from when I was shooting weddings and stuff in the past, I don't take any of that stuff anymore. You know, and I also have my phone, my iPhone, where like if I'm shooting like the gear laid out on the table, I might just grab my phone and say, okay, guys, this is what I'm bringing today. And I'm just making a clip, you know, hand holding this little phone, and I'll supplement that. But, you know, there are vlogging cameras that are about $500 or so, where there's a rear screen that can flip up so that you can see the framing, you know, see that you're in the frame and get that squared away. Those action cameras are amazing because they can shoot 4K if you want to. They've got a front-facing little screen so that you can, you know, look at that camera and see that you are in the frame, and the red light's blinking, so you know it's still working, which is awfully important because there have been times when that stopped working and I was still talking as if it were working, and later you find out that you were, you know, thwarted. So camera-wise, you can start with a cell phone. You can graduate to a $500 phone or less. You can get a vlogging phone, a vlogging camera, or an action camera, and switch that. But there's no reason to spend, you know, thousands of dollars on high-end gear. You know, you're shooting 1080p video. It's just not necessary.
Thank you, Cliff. That was great.